This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So there are a lot of things that are presenting themselves in the country at the moment. So first of all, are you still with the Farmers Party?
I'm with DCP.
Okay, with DCP.
That's why I'm the patron for Nairobi.
Yeah.
So that's my party.
Okay.
Yeah.
For this conversation moving forward, Irungu Nyakera is with DCP.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, there are many things going on at the moment. On that list is that people are not quite sure who's where. So Irungu Nyakera might say he's with DCP today, but just because of how politics play out, we might see something happening tomorrow. We have seen that party leader Rigathi Gachagua has been around the country, and he's been very bold with some of the things that he's been saying, which have actually spurred on thought in the minds of people. And so the question becomes, is it purely political, or is it clearly to get Kenya to a place whereby it's operating optimally? And how can we see these politics, especially for that of the president? That is it one that is marked by a desire to see Kenya do and be better?
I think if you look at it from the two angles, one from Rigathi Gachagua and one from the president. Rigathi Gachagua has been talking about certain things around our country. The most recent was the discussion around the placements in schools, where he went around schools in the Mount Kenya region, where we have about 30-40% of the population from northeastern Kenya in the schools, while the locals who've gotten much higher grades are now being placed in those schools. And that's not just for Mount Kenya. It's actually also for the other regions. In Western, you'll find the same, the very good schools, the Marandas and the others. The people coming up, we have a very small population for the locals. And it calls the question on what are we doing, what are leaders doing with the money that they are receiving from the national government? During the period of devolution, Northern Kenya has received 1 trillion shillings from the national government through the devolution funds as well as the equalization fund. So the question is, why don't they have any good schools in that region, even with 1 trillion shillings having been poured there? And then when you come to the local schools, like for example, a place like Murang'a, Njiri High School. Njiri High School is land that was given by the community, school built by the community, before it got to the place where the national government came in now to put up, once it was converted into a sub-county, super county school. So, which means that the locals should at least be the ones to be given preference, especially the ones who've done well. So that's a conversation that even I've seen the leadership from Northeastern have picked up, and they at least not the leadership, but the professionals from Northeastern have picked up and said, by the way, on this we agree with Rigathi Gachagua. Our leaders need to start working for us. We need to start prioritizing the things that matter for the people, and not just building malls and other things in Nairobi when your people don't have those facilities that they require. And then when now they go to school, they pass, and you're like, now you're forcing them to other schools where the other leaders, the local leaders, actually put the resources to work. If you come to the side of the president and the narrative, I think that's where most of the things that we are seeing the president say are actually more political than actionable. Because I feel the president should be doing more than speaking. But every pronouncement that we are hearing is actually more politically inclined. The hustler narrative has not even died down. Now we're on the Singapore journey. And when you ask yourself, how do we get to Singapore when the health system is not working? When we have now done 4 years, heading to 4 years, and not one single person has been charged with corruption in this country, other than Waitito. Nothing else. When education in itself, today I can tell you my WhatsApp, I have over 20-30 messages from parents who cannot take their children to school. And I was looking at a school that was charging 53,000 the other day, 2 years ago. Now it's charging 100,000. Which parent is going to afford 100,000 per year for 4 years?
Okay.
Yeah. So you see, I'm not seeing actions. Yet the president has actually all the power for action. It's mostly narrative. We are seeing that he's talking about the opposition has no agenda. And to be honest, the opposition can only have an agenda. The president actually can they can take action, because the issues that we are raising are that the president does not have an agenda. If I just add one more point, which is regards to the global positioning. We've seen the actions that America has been taking over the last few weeks, and have been actions that disrupt world order, and in particular, even areas around the provisions of the WTO, the World Trade Organizations, in ways of how do countries trade. And I don't know how Kenya then prepares itself to this new world order or disorder. Is it because we've not even had a pronouncement from the president on issues around how are we trading, who are trading partners, how are we prepared to continue? Because everybody you talk to is complaining about the economic circumstances. But we have actually not had any pronouncements from the president on issues that affect people directly. Not just pronouncements, but actions. Yeah, because we are just told the dollar is stable. Yeah, but that really does not change anything. If you don't have even a dollar in your pocket, doesn't matter whether it's 130 or 170, you still have zero in your pocket. So I think we are hearing more from the president than we are seeing, and so we ought to be seeing more.
Which then asks the question, even as we hear more from the president and we're not seeing boots on ground in moving the agenda. I mean, we talk about the Hustler Fund. What happened to Hustler Fund? We talk about a better bottom-up economic transformation agenda. What happened to that? We're not seeing boots on ground that will say, even in the agenda that we had, we are 20%, 50%. We do not have any stats to show that. And now we're talking about Singapore. You've talked about the world order that is changing. How will those decisions affect Kenya? Is Kenya preparing for what is to come, But that notwithstanding, one would then look at it in terms of all we are seeing happening is we are fighting to form the next government. We are fighting for the election day. No one is fighting about, there is a conversation that has started that northern frontier counties do not have schools. Schools is a national government matter. What is the president doing to address these? And we are seeing zero. All we are seeing is 2027, we want to form power. When does Mwananchi become front and center? That's particularly the issue that we have. I saw I think I can't remember the name of the organization, but they had put out the manifestos that were under the Kenya Kwanza, and out of the 269 promises by around September last year, when they released the report, only 16% were marked complete, and all the others were not. And at the time of that launch of that report is when the president was on overdrive, making more promises. Promises on the 28,000 kilometers, promises on the highways that are going to be built. So essentially, we have 253 promises not fulfilled. And then now we've started adding more. And now we've added the bigger one, which is our journey to Singapore. And you've talked about the US and the trade issues. The AGOA is actually coming to an end this year.
Yes.
And we have seen the increase in reciprocal tariffs that have been placed in Kenya, on Kenya. So the question is now, without AGOA and without what's next with the trade pact with the US. Before Trump came, when in our last administration, we were actually very close to signing the bilateral agreement with the US, which was going to be the second after the one in Morocco, for an African country to have a bilateral agreement. Till today, that has not been signed, and that conversation we don't even hear about it. So essentially, there's a lot of talk. There's very little action. So when you see us on the opposition side, and we are saying that one term, and they're saying that one term is not an agenda. It's an agenda because what lies below the one term is actually everything that is going wrong. The issues of health that SHA people are still paying in cash, and it was replaced it replaced NHIF, which seemed to be functioning better. The issue that all appointments are actually about politics. It's to loyalists rather than actually to the actions and the competence. We are seeing now probably there will be the impending cabinet reshuffles and all that, but they will not be about making Kenya Singapore. They will be about making the two-term possibility a reality for them.
It's interesting because if we look at the rebuttal to that the president has had on several an opportunity when he had to speak, is that, so they say one term, and then what do they say after that? I think maybe giving rise to that. What would be the other side of these issues that we see today? With the ones that you've raised, for example, trade issues. We've talked about corruption issues. You talk about, non-developmental issues, 253 promises unmet. What would be the answer to that? Because you know what, Irungu, that easily 80 to 85% of the folks who are asking for an opportunity to lead have been in these circles in the last 20 years. They've been there. They are there. So what would be the differentiating factor to ask Kenyans to cast their view in a different direction? What would be the thing that would be done differently to bring about an opposite result?
I can tell you, if you speak to an average Kenyan today, they will actually tell you what they want to be done. And it is absolutely has nothing to do with what the president has been able to achieve today. The Kenyans will tell you that their economic circumstances are very challenging. It's January, people are taking kids back to school. They are unable to take kids back to school. And when they are, the cost is way higher than it ever used to be. It's January, people are coming back to their businesses. The businesses are not what they used to be. There is no money in circulation. And that's what everybody is saying. There is money in circulation for a few people. But for the general public and your common mwananchi, there is no money. We have banks that are making supernormal profits. But they're not making them from the common mwananchi. They're making them from the government. This will be the first year when the government will be borrowing over 1 trillion shillings in borrowings. In the last, for the period between July to November, the government raised about 965 billion in taxes and paid 895 billion in loans repayment, leaving very little less than 70 billion for everything else, including salaries, pending bills, development, nothing. And we are still borrowing more. Yeah. So the common man is actually just trying to survive. People are not even trying to grow. They just want to survive. They want those 3 meals for their families. They want to at least get transport to get to work. And that was not the promise that was made. Yeah. And that's not the growth that people are looking for. And that's why they're saying that there's no agenda. The agenda is actually on youth and youth employment. It's on business and supporting industries and supporting small businesses to grow. It's on pending bills and paying people who actually are owed money, their money, so that they can actually put money back into it. It's on accountability in terms of utilization of funds that are public funds, so that we are not borrowing in excess, and whatever is being borrowed is used and raised is used in the right way. It's actually accountability in how our laws are respected. We are not creating infrastructure fund to start putting money that we have sold Safaricom, we've sold KPC by force, and then that put them into some fund that is not authorized, and then use the money the way we want. So those are the things that Kenyans are tired of. They actually want a space where the leaders are serving them and not serving themselves. And that's really what the one term is actually representing. It's representing everything that Kenyans don't want about the current administration.
2022, one thing that Kenyans voted for was pesa mfukoni.
Yes.
Because economy, people want to take care of their sick, people want to take their children to school, they want to eat, they want to live good, people want to enjoy life, We're only here for a short period. But today, any Kenyan out there will tell you that through the taxation regime that there is, they're poorer today as compared to 2022. That even the taxes that are collected, Kenyans cannot see the trillions of shillings that have been collected on anything, We are paying debt. But there is also the talk of a debt whose funds never got to Kenya in the first place, So it is a question of things are so difficult. We have given so much money, but there is nothing for us to show. And anyone who's out there will ask, fine, everyone wants to form government, but what guarantees do we have? Because give and take, like Ndu has said, everyone who's in the political space right now has been there for the past 20 years. Some have been older than majority of Gen Zs who are out there today in the political space. And how do Kenyans then trust that the current political class has their best interest at heart, regardless where they look?
Yeah, and I think the last, because we're part of the side, the Kenya Kwanza side in the last campaign, and so we worked very hard to put together the manifesto, which, as you said, was actually pesa mfukoni.
Yeah.
But what ended up, in my view, is mashimo mifukoni. Ile pesa yote that was there. Yeah. And it's true, some of the people are the same. They've been there in politics. Because to be fair, you also can't come out of nowhere and lead the nation.
True.
And that's why the most important thing is to start looking at the track record of the people that we want to elect. If somebody has never been in government or in service, then they also cannot understand government and how it will run and how they will run, and cannot make promises. But I think the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, during the campaigns for 2022, he was telling us, I know my deputy president. You guys don't know my deputy president. I know him, and I'm telling you, you should not elect him. So we should also be listening to people who are close to those we are trying to elect, or we want to elect. If you look at the people that we have in a united opposition, we do have good people. We have Rigathi, we have someone like Kalonzo as well. Kalonzo has been there for a very long time. And Kalonzo is not known for actually any corruption. He's a steadfast leader. He's a diplomat. And you see, there are people saying, he's not strong. But we are running away from that strong person. Because a strong man believes that he can do it all by himself. But a leader believes that he can put together a team that can deliver for him and with him for Kenyans. And I think it's time that we start looking at that. You see, the united opposition is not saying, we are not saying that there is a single individual who can manage to beat William Ruto in the next election. It's all these 5, 6, 7 different leaders coming together and saying, let's exploit our individual strengths and the strength of our networks so that we can win. But also, once we win, we have 7, 8 people there who are at that table who will be accountable to the millions of Kenyans. And they will be able to come to the table and say, this is not what we promised Kenyans. But you see, in the current dispensation, it's only one guy. He's the one who delivered his seats. He's the one who, sometimes when you talk to him, he's like, I'm the one who got elected. I'm the one who campaigned. I'm the one who brought everything to the table. So he feels that he's the king and nobody should talk or advise him. That's why our current president, biggest problem that he has is that the buck stops with him. Anything that is wrong cannot be attributed to anybody else, because at some point he certainly made a call or made the decision for anything to go in that direction.
Yeah.
Nobody advised him to sell Safaricom. It's him who said, I'll sell Safaricom. Nobody advised him on where the funds for selling Safaricom will go. 2 months before he said they'll sell Safaricom, they passed the Privatization Act. The new Privatization Act was very clear that all the proceeds from privatization will go directly into the consolidated fund, changing the provisions of the previous Privatization Act that was there that mandated the Treasury to create special purpose accounts where money can go. Now he's taken us back to the old Privatization Act that allowed for a new fund to be created, yet it's not in law. So he's advising himself. He's the one who called us one day and told us to go to State House so that we can pass the 4 bills that then came to bring SHA. Yeah, we had not even I was the chairman of KEMSA. We had not been consulted, but we were the ones to provide the products to this once the law is enacted. To this. So essentially that's the biggest problem. So the beauty with the united opposition is that there'll be checks and balances.
Okay.
There'll be enough people who are able to come out and speak to each other and tell each other because they've worked together as a team.
Okay.
Can
Kenyans believe the position? Because Kenyans, the politics in Kenya are always very interesting. I mean, just look at the headline on the Standard today is that there's a gentleman who's moved from a plush position and he's going to throw his name, or rather his hat into the ring to be president in 2027. And is a game, what people are calling a game, that it's likely to split people or to put people's attention in a different direction. My question goes to, can Kenyans believe? Because already the words have come out from many people that Rigathi Gachagua and his party would be a way to move people's attention and then essentially bring people back. And he actually is still and might still be working with William Ruto. You've heard that, I'm sure, Irungu.
Yes.
Is that the case? Not that I expect you to say it is, but is there a possibility that could happen? That one day Rigathi Gachagua would see a different light and say, you know what? Actually, it's possible that Singapore is where we all want to go.
I can tell you because this is something he's told me personally. You remember by the time Rigathi Gachagua was being ousted from the position of deputy president, the entire Mount Kenya was already in opposition. He did not take the Mount Kenya to the opposition. He found the Mount Kenya in opposition. And he always says, should he become Saul from Paul, it's not the other way, then he will go alone. Because the reasons why people are in opposition, it's not just because they want to be in opposition. It's because of the failed promises. The promises of Pesa Mfukoni, the promises of businesses doing better, the promises of their children getting jobs, the promises of the children getting educated. So those are the promises that have failed. And what we are seeing are games. And these games, we really love the Standard. I have to tell you that. We love the Standard for the bold headlines and for the bold stories. And we also love Spice and everything else because of that. And there is a possibility that one of you might also end up in cabinet should there be reshuffles. We really hope that the Standard will continue being the way it is. What we are seeing here, and we saw it with Moses Kuria, we are seeing with Owalo, we will see it after the reshuffles, that the president will start pushing his people out to the ground to create confusion. And that's why you saw Moses Kuria come and say he wants to run for president. The next minute he said he wants to run for governor of Nairobi. The next minute he said now he's insulting Gachagua, he's back with Ruto. We saw him with Ruto yesterday or the day before. It will be the same for Owalo. It will be the same for Oparanya, and probably even the same with Joho, because the biggest target for the president right now is building UDA and killing ODM. Killing ODM, not fully, but making ODM a Nyanza only party. Yeah. So the powers that ODM had outside Nyanza want to be clipped. That's why the president wants Joho and his people in ODM from the coast to get out of ODM, create a new party, political party, where all the ODM now takes over from the ODM of the coast.
If I may ask you, Irungu,
yes.
Why would, it's like poker,
Yes.
why would you show your hand so obviously to everybody?
Yeah.
This announcement from Owalo came over the weekend.
Yes.
And within minutes, people said, this is a game.
Yeah.
We've put it in the headlines today.
Yes.
It's very clear. You have already charted out and seen it's very clear what's supposed to be happening here.
Yes.
That Owalo wants to go and get the rest of the Nyanza votes and bring them, and then later on come and tell people that actually, you know what, we might as well join Ruto.
Yes.
It is clear.
Yes.
Why would I do something like that? And it is so clear to everybody that obviously this is what you're doing, and then still continue with it. Really still thinking that the people then would cling on to Owalo. Why would I do something so evident for everybody to see? We've already dissected it in less than 3 days.
Yes.
Why would somebody do that?
But you see, that's what they call the elephant in the room. It's so clear, it's so big, yet it's there. Yeah, and with time, you just ignore it.
Yeah.
So people even forgot that Kuria was in government.
Or is he desperate?
No, he's there because you see, you will normalize their being outside government. But he's still in the payroll. He still has his offices in Karen, which are government offices. He still has government vehicles. He's still with government. Yeah. So, but when you do it early enough, he'll be able to chart his way. Not really his way, but he'll be seen to chart his way. We'll make a noise about Owalo now. But within a week, 2 weeks, we'll forget about all of that. And Owalo will continue and with the agenda that he's created. Last week, the 81st birthday of Raila, the coast politicians in ODM met, in coast. And they said, make Joho the party leader or we'll create our own party. And that party is Aisha Jumwa, Joho, Kingi, and Mvuria. So again, all the ODM stewards in the coast. Oparanya himself said he's ready to leave ODM. And he's ready to marshal votes for William Ruto. And he will be put in the Western Kenya region to create their own political party that then brings in Luhya votes into the pocket, and then bring them there. The discussions have been with Kindiki that there is Mount Kenya is not one. There's Mount Kenya East, then Mount Kenya West, so that Kindiki can go control the smaller part of the Mount Kenya East. So this is very well calculated. So everything that you see Ruto do is politics. Absolutely. And I am saying, if for 4 years we have not had development, and so far everything he's saying is politics, what makes us imagine that in a second term, should he get a second term, that he will care at all on anything that is development? In my view, if William Ruto got a second term, the same way we've seen the first term being everything about politics, his second terms will be everything about politics to get a replacement for himself, so that he can protect himself beyond 2032 on issues of corruption, on issues of his wealth, on issues of defamation, anything else, he protects himself. So there is absolute, and that's why from the opposition side, what you're saying is that, yes, why will Kenya believe us? Because he's a man in the ring. He's the one with the money. He's the one who can pay all the pipers. And
he's the one with Kenyan's money.
He's the one with Kenyan's money.
All right.
So he can control the narrative in many ways because he has the money. But in Kenyans' hearts, people won't change. You don't get change from the person who's oppressing you.
Kenyans want change. We agree. Kenyans have shown that they want change. But let's speak about these Kenyans for a moment in terms of interrogating statements out there, interrogating moves that are being made, because you mentioned about Moses Kuria, who left, even had a candidate in Mbere, and it said it is one of the reasons why the opposition didn't even get that vote, because votes were split. But here we talk about Kenyans who have said what it is they want. They have trust issues with the current political class, but there is also the aspect of violence that is meted every other political season that does exist. And one asks the question, I mean, even in churches nowadays, because a politician has showed up, they have to be beaten and tear gas has to be thrown in this place. Violence and politics in Kenya, are they Siamese twins? And if not, how do we deal with that problem? Because Nyakera, if I want to support you, I want to come support you and be sure that I'll go home as I came to your election. Why do we see that political parties or political meetings in the country are full of violence? Is it a currency?
It speaks to the intolerance of the current administration, because the violence in most instances is actually coming from the government side. If you look at when we were in Kariobangi, after the election of our MCA in Kariobangi North, and we were in church for Thanksgiving, and they tear gassed us in church. We had not even planned on, we didn't even imagine that could happen. So we didn't even have a plan B, that there are people we had put in place to help or support us or even get out of that. 3 days ago, I think on Thursday in Nyeri, when the deputy president, former deputy president went to Nyeri, they were met by 3,000-4,000 goons who had been paid by the state to disrupt his meeting. The following day, he went to Kirinyaga. They were met by an even bigger mob in Kirinyaga, and even the vehicles, all the vehicles were vandalized. The equipment, the media equipment for the former deputy president were even stolen. Don't have it anymore. In church on Sunday in Kiambu, in Gatondo, the same. They were tear gassed.
But Irungu, one cannot also just say that it's just government side, because one of the key principles, J.B. Muturi, former Attorney General, you know what I mean, during the very by-election, he was seen beating up an individual. And one would say, someone of his stature, even if someone has wronged you, the best thing to do is reprimand them, take them to police. So violence, one would say, comes from both sides, no?
No, JB as that one case
represents you.
Yeah, but one instance versus all the others of
can't be excused either way.
You see, it was election day. Tempers are high, running high. You are seeing all these people who are coming to taunt you, because they've been sent by the state. And you're also human, because I'm saying it's retaliatory. It is not actually, he's not the one who started it. The ones who started it, actually, if you look at the Mbere itself, the 4 polling centers where they actually stole the elections, they poured goons in the morning.
So do we agree then that violence is currency in Kenya's politics, whichever side that you sit?
Unfortunately, it seems like the government wants it to become a currency, which means that even for us on the opposition side, then we'll have to use it as well, because we cannot. Nobody has the monopoly of violence. Nobody has the monopoly of goons. Because why do we have goons? We have goons because we have very many young, capable youth who are unemployed, who for that reason they can be used, and they're being used, and the government is leading in using them.
I like that you chose the word leading, so they're not solely using them, that they're being used across board, because the tactics that one would be painted or with to move ahead politically are the same tactics that are applied by other people. No?
We don't have saints in opposition.
Okay.
We have politicians as well. So if the government decides to be using goons, even the opposition will be using goons. And who will be injured is the goons themselves. It's the Kenyans who will eventually get injured.
I understand. A bit of a difficult or maybe uncomfortable question. Would DCP would it have been formed? Would all of these things that we've heard said in the last 1 year have been done if Rigathi Gachagua had not been impeached as deputy president? It's a question that's been asked of him. Maybe it's not a question that has been asked of you in a public, platform like this one. But would this be the case had he not been impeached? Would the stirring of the proverbial oyster have been so strong that he would have said, you know what? All of the things that he says today that he found uncomfortable when he was in that position would have stirred him to say, you know what? I relinquish my position as deputy president. I resign and I want to find and form a different path. Would all those things have happened, Irungu?
I don't want to speak for him. All I can say is that he was thrown out for speaking the uncomfortable truth inside. He might not
when
have,
nobody heard it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He might not have said it publicly, but he said it within government.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's why he was thrown out.
That's why he was thrown out.
Okay.
Yeah. So because when you're inside government, yes, even if you spoke ill of the government, nobody will hear you, and you'll actually look silly, to the outsiders, because you're in government, because you are always told, okay, then resign, exit. But then when you tell them internally, these are the challenges, we can't do this, we need to change this and that, then they're like, okay, he's not one of us.
Yeah, I hear you.
Let's throw him out.
Because let's be real.
Yeah.
Irungu, the things that are happening out here for Kenyans, it's not fun.
No.
We've got families whose children are not in school. This one that everybody's going back to school. There's those who can't.
Yeah.
There's those who don't have clean drinking water.
Yes.
There are people who don't understand what it is when you talk about a road that goes from farm to market. There are people who grow 3 cabbages and they're looking for transport to take it to the market to eat something that day.
Yeah.
There are 30 plus counties that are on the brink of starvation because of drought. And there are authorities within government. That there are teachers who are looking for money. Doctors are on the street today, teachers tomorrow. I mean, it's all over the place. It is on that desperation that Kenyans build hope. That's why they come out to those rallies. It's not because they are bored on a Sunday, Irungu. That's why Kenyans come out, because maybe this person who's standing up atop a vehicle is going to not just tell them to feel better, but that if they give them this last hope, because that's what it is, this vote is that last hope to say, you know what, do change. And if it turns out to be a lie, it is more than just in public. It is a dashing of somebody's life.
Yeah.
Sometimes politicians don't understand.
And
so this is the crux. This is where rubber meets the road. So maybe it's a message you can take back and say, guys, if we're not serious about this thing, leave it.
And you see, the reasons why Kenyans have that hope is because he's the only person out there. And I think there's a time when Rigathi Gachagua was at Thika Green meeting professionals from Mount Kenya. And he told them, guys, you need to, I want to challenge you to also take up a leadership position so that we can bring order and sanity into our politics. You see, unfortunately, we only vote for the people who present themselves.
Yeah.
And if somebody has not presented themselves, then everything else they're saying, they can only add to a conversation, but they're not. They will not be the ones to bring the change. And people will hang on the one who actually has presented themselves, because that's the one who can carry their dreams. So my call is also to the professionals as well, people who believe that they can change this country. Let's come out. Let's seek to be voted for so that we can bring this change. You see, Kenya has 3 arms of government. We have the executive, we have the judiciary, and we have the legislature. The executive is the one that has failed Kenyans. But it has failed Kenyans because the legislature has allowed the executive to fail Kenyans. When the president says that we'll sell Safaricom and put the money into a fund that I'm the one who's controlling, it's only the legislature that can pass that kind of law that allows the president to do that. And they very quickly do. Wanapewa 10,000 shillings, kila mtu anapitisha asubuhi. Yeah. And that's why we need, when we look at the executive, yes, but let's also look at the legislature. That's actually where the laws are made. That's the oversight for the government. Judiciary, to be honest, they're trying their best. But the legislature has completely failed us for being in bed with the executive to oppress Kenyans.
You've brought in something that is really critical, because I remember a time, I went back also, Rigathi Gachagua said, when it was just having a conversation, said, look at the kind of people that Raila Odinga put in parliament.
Yes.
The caliber of individuals that he put in parliament who would push his agenda could not be compared with people that are on his side, you know. And this speaks to the kind of people that, as Kenyans, we vote for. And if Kenyans interrogate the individuals out there, and as Ndwa said, the reason why every electioneering year there is a change is because people are voting using that hope so that their lives become better. Today, if opposition would form government, it would be because Kenyans have that hope and have trusted you with that hope that you would change. So what are we doing to ensure that individuals who get to the legislature will work for Kenyans and not the executive? Because we say here, executive, the legislator is powerful than even the executive because they are the ones who even pass the budgets that would go to fund these offices. So what are we doing to marshal up credible individuals who will work for the people and not just there to rubber stamp what the executive wants?
But and that's what I'm saying. You see, the people will be voted for the ones, the guy in the ring. And so because sometimes people come and tell me, my friends, why are you running? There's nothing that you're going to look for. You have the business, you have XYZ, why are you running? And I keep telling them that if I don't, someone else will. And that person, I might, in my view, I feel that I have the vision, the plan for what I want to do for Nairobi, should I be elected governor. There are people who want to run so that they can make money. There are people who want to run because they have nothing else to do. Yeah. They want to create a career with it. And the same for the legislature. Yeah. There are people who actually are brilliant lawyers. Like I really love a man by the name Otiende Amolo. Yeah, and I've known him for very many years. And I see when he stands in Bunge and speaks, he talks sense. There are others, especially from Mount Kenya, who when they speak, the speaker has to look for a translator, to explain to Kenyans what exactly this guy is saying. Yeah, we have to ensure that the people that we send to parliament, even as voters, we need to tell ourselves, by the guy we are sending to parliament, we are not sending him just for our constituency, we are sending him for Kenya. And so when we look at the people who've presented themselves, then we look for the best. Yeah. And then when these professionals come to seek elective positions, nothing will ever be done differently. Only the work that they are going to deliver will be done differently. The politics will be done the same. If the politics is done in a certain way, there is no need to come and change the politics the way it's done. Just do it the way that it's always been done. Then once you are elected, now change things from there. Yeah, and that's the only thing I can tell the people, the professionals who would like to serve Kenyans.
Irungu Nyakera is the patron of DCP Nairobi. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I mean, you say these things and we latch onto them. Yeah. So we are looking forward to a time where we see these things actually come through. The time is ticking and it's coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing these thoughts with us this morning. We look forward to engaging again in the near future. It's necessary that we do and not keep quiet until the next. Asante sana.
Asante sana.
Good morning.
And have a good day.
Yes, cheers, you too. It's 9 a.m.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.